A warm welcome and good evening to everyone. My name is Shashwat. I'm from Azim Premji University. I welcome you all to another edition of Nature Writing for Children webinar series, which has been running for almost 2 years now. This is I should say the last one for this year. So it seems to be a very interesting one. We have been talking about numerous books. The idea behind the series has been to bring to fore discussion on the genre of nature writing for children. There are a lot of authors who have taken up this, writing books for children, and we feel it's a very great way to have a conversation with them, understand their process, and also take some tips from them on what to read and what to do when you have writer's block and those kind of things. So today in that series we have a very interesting, I should say, a writer who is very multifaceted in the kind of things that he does. He's an NBA commentator. He's a wildlife photographer. He's written very many books. A couple of books on Bollywood for that matter. And he wrote a very interesting book called The Tiger, the Bear, and the Battle for Mahovann. So we have with us Akshay Manwani. Welcome on board, Akshay. It's such a pleasure to have you on board for our series now.
Thank you, Shashwat. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for the glowing introduction. And I'm so happy that this is such a good initiative where you're doing this series on nature writing for children. I think there isn't enough that we can do for making children aware of the challenges that face conservation issues, and making them aware of their immediate natural environment. So it's great that this is another platform which is looking to correct that.
Yes, interesting. So let's dig in deep into our thing. The first thing that comes to mind is you're a Mumbaiker. Being a
Yes.
Mumbaiker, the most your exposure to wildlife must be whatever the animals at Rani Bagh. I don't know whether they've seen the penguins out there, or the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, or the stray leopard that might just walk into your thing. So how did your fascination for wildlife and all this come across?
So
What is the genesis?
I was not originally from Mumbai. I was born and raised in Delhi. I spent the first 17 years of my life in the capital of India. Uh, but my love for wildlife actually comes from my mother. When we were small, whatever wildlife program that used to come on Doordarshan back in the day, she used to kind of get us interested, me and my brother, to watch it. My brother is not so interested, but somehow that fascination that she had, it kind of filtered down to me. So I remember whenever these programs used to come of cheetahs and lions in the African jungles and all, I used to watch hooked. And as a child, well, we didn't tour that much. I think once we went to Sariska in up north, from Delhi only. We drove down. We didn't see anything other than, I think, a porcupine and a jungle cat, nothing else. But it wasn't like that we were going regularly to the jungle, or even the literature that I read wasn't had very little to do with jungle history, or literature on wild animals and all. No, it was just a fascination that was there, but I wasn't consuming or experiencing too much. It was whatever was coming on television by virtue of Doordarshan, and later on when cable television also came in. I would find myself flipping through Discovery, Animal Planet, Nat Geo, but it was basically my mother. Now, when you come to Mumbai, it's you're right. These things are there, and one of the things I realized is that one just has to be aware of what is there in your own backyard. Even though we live in cities, like just outside my window now where I live, very often I have seen an oriole. I have seen the coppersmith barbet. And these were not birds that I knew of about, let's say, even 5 years ago. But as my kind of I decided to get more serious about this wildlife and wildlife photography. I started, being more aware, and just keeping my eyes and ears open to what is there in my immediate vicinity. So I have not been to see the penguins, or seen the odd stray leopard crossing the road in RA Mill Colony, as you know. But I have been to see the flamingos that come down every year from Gujarat to the Thane Creek, and I have photographed them also. It is really a spectacle. It's and you'll be amazed that in a city like Mumbai, which is kind of so busy, and so much of traffic and so many people in this city, that there is also a space for these beautiful birds. And it's not just flamingos, you get some other varieties of birds also when you go over there. You'll see some northern shovelers and some pied avocets and all that. So again, you just need to be aware. I'm telling you, every city in this country, whether it is Delhi, I think in any case has a lot more birding hotspots on the outside. Mumbai in the monsoons has the oriental dwarf kingfisher, which according to me is one of the most beautiful birds in the world, if not India. So you just need to be aware. You have to make yourself aware, and you have to learn about what it is. Even though you're living in the city and you're surrounded by a concrete jungle, the I think it's very easy for the wild to thrive and survive. We just have to create those opportunities for them, and we have to keep our distance from them in order to let them thrive and survive.
Yeah, wonderful. In fact, that brings to my thought. We also have a series running, Nature in Our Cities, which talks about a lot of the nature is there within our,
Yes.
in our proximity, and we just need to be more sensitized. But apart from that, in your introduction, you have spoken about how you have been roaming all across the world. From kangaroos in Australia to
Yeah. Yeah.
wildebeest or giraffes in Africa. So, how has your journeys been? And if I'm not wrong, you have visited a whole lot of wildlife sanctuaries and parks in India. So, how has that experience been, and how has that changed you as a person as well?
Well, so again, when the trips that I made outside India, leaving the Australian one, when I went for those, those overseas destinations, I had a very basic DSLR camera, which I had bought about 10, 12 years ago. I didn't even know the settings on that camera, and I thought that just if I click the button, the images will come out like superb. So now when I look back at those images that I have taken from, let's say I have been to Rwanda to photograph the silverback gorilla, or I go back to my trip to Tanzania in 2016, where we went to see the Serengeti. I'm embarrassed by those pictures. In fact, I don't even look at those folders. I don't count them. I say that I have not seen these animals only, even though I have had pretty good sightings, and it has really been. In fact, the journey to Rwanda to see the mountain silverback gorilla has been one of, I would say, the greatest. Singular. If one asks me, outside of a personal, that what is the one singular great experience, I would say that is the singular best experience I have had in my life. Being in the the wild with them, it was something really magical and special. But from a photography point of view, I feel that I need to do it again, because the images were really, they were, I would say, on a scale of 0 to 10, they were negative. So it's still there on my list. I don't think outside India there's anything that I have done in the real sense. But yes, now in India I feel that there is a some kind of work that I can sit back and say that okay, this is good work I've done. And there is a list of about 50-55 wild areas, Shashwat, you won't believe it. Like people always think about, and this is one of my pet peeves, that people always talk about the important places like Ranthambore, Jim Corbett National Park, Kanha in Madhya Pradesh, Tadoba in Maharashtra, Kaziranga in the east. But beyond these very obvious names, there are so many wild spaces in India, and where you can get such incredible biodiversity to witness, that you should not limit yourself to these five or six things, 5 or 6 places. So I roughly now, in the last, like I was telling you, that since 2017, this kind of became an ambition of mine, that I have to visit each kind of wild place in India. I don't say national park or wildlife sanctuary, because a lot of these wild spaces are not designated as protected areas. There are a lot of these spaces where the particular wild species is coexisting with human habitation, right? So for example, there is a place up north in Rajasthan called Beda. It's very famous for its leopards. Now, is it a protected area? Is it a wildlife sanctuary? Is it a national park? No, but the local population over there, which consists of these traveling shepherds and goat herds and all, they have learned to coexist with the leopards in the those rocky outcrop regions that they have. The geographical feature of that area is that there are these rocky outcrops, and the leopards are found in between those caves and rocks. So I have been to a place like that. Some other places, like for example, you go to a place like Sattal, right? There is such incredible birding over there, birding opportunity, bird photography and all that. The birds are all over. There are people who have set up bird hides and that. So now, roughly, I when I started doing this in 2017, from with a serious bent of mind, I must have done about 25 odd wild areas, and I still have about 30 to 35 more wild areas to go. So every time I go, I learn of something else. Just last week, I was in the Sundarbans, and which is in Kolkata. I mean, not last week. I just returned yesterday, and I learned of some other place that I must visit. I went last month, at the end of last month, to a place called Velavadar Black Buck Sanctuary, which is in Gujarat. Okay, and I didn't even know that there is such a place where you can see wolves and hyenas. See, people are caught up with tigers and rhinos and elephants. I have been fortunate to see these animals, but even beyond that, there are wolves, there are hyenas, there are jungle cats. So I have had the good fortune of seeing these animals and photographing them. And there are still about 30 odd places to visit. So you can imagine, and I'm not getting any younger. Doing wildlife photography is actually, I keep saying, it has little to do with talent. It actually has to do with fitness and hard work. So that the good thing is that it has also, well, I still feel I can do a lot better, but it helps me, it keeps me motivated to keep my diet in control.
Oh, wonderful. Akshay, typically when people visit all these sanctuaries, and just
Yes.
before we talk about the book, and because you have visited so many of them, typically I remember when we have visited all these sanctuaries, and say you go to Ranthambore and you don't spot the tiger, and you're like, "Yaar, bekar ho gaya ye to pura."
Hmm.
That's a typical mentality.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you react to those kind of things? We are
you
just
know
merely looking at a
that
big
that is
sanctuary.
what that is what I'm saying. When I started out, let's say 2017, the serious time, I used to be like that arey, tiger nahi mila. And there have been many jungle journeys that have been completely empty. Like, I remember the first time I went to Kabini, which is a beautiful jungle in down south in Karnataka. It's about 6 hours out of Bangalore. I must have done 6 safaris, 3 days, over 3 days. We didn't see the tiger, leopard. We were told that it's a hot spot for tigers and leopards. It was just our bad luck. I think a couple of jeeps saw, and then by the time we reached the spot, the tiger had moved into the bushes or had walked away and all that. So tab lagta tha ki, oh, this has been a complete disaster. But over the years, what happened is, and I think the first time I realized this was in 2020, just when the first wave of the pandemic had gotten over. I was so itchy to get back to the jungle that I went alone to, mostly I go alone only, but I went to Bandhavgarh and Kana in 2020 October, both those jungles. And what happened was, till that point, I had seen jackals a couple of places. The photographs were very bad. In one place, I remember having a good sighting, but I had messed up my camera settings, so the images came out very bad, like really bad. But what happened was, in these two places, the especially Kanha, I believe, is like, so far of the 20-25 places I have been, it's a beautiful place to photograph jackals. And my luck on those safaris was again very bad with the tiger. I think I did 12 safaris, and in totality, I saw only two tigers. That too, for one was just lying down for 45 minutes. She was sleeping. It was a female tigress. She just kept turning. There was not much action. And the other tiger, we barely saw him for 30 seconds to a minute. He gave us that much time, and then he walked away. So what I realized was, when I got the opportunity with the jackals, and they gave me a lot of time in both the places, I photographed them to my heart's content. Really, I really enjoyed photographing them. And then suddenly, from somewhere, I had this magical moment of realization that, take what the jungle gives you. Don't go there with this mindset that I have come only to see the tiger. If you go there with the mindset, that invariably, I'll tell you, the last two places that I have gone to see, traditionally speaking, or with the that ki, yahan to tiger dikhega. Yeah, I was in Sundarbans, and then in June I had gone to Panna Tiger Reserve. In both the places, I did not see the tiger. In Sundarbans, I did not see. In Panna Tiger Reserve, the guides who were with me, they were so embarrassed that they had not been able to show me the tiger, that they organized one additional safari for me the next morning, right? And still we didn't see. But what how did we make the most of it? In Panna Tiger Reserve, we had the most amazing sightings of the monitor lizard, right? So I photographed them to my heart's content, and in fact, some of those pictures have been published on this wonderful website called Round Glass, which is a conservation website. And really, they are doing outstanding work. So my pictures got published on that website for the monitor lizard. Now when I went to Sundarbans, I realized that, there's another species over there called the water monitor lizard, which is different from the other monitor lizard which was found in Panna Tiger Reserve. And I photographed that to my heart's content, and really some of the images are really good. So again, the point is, take what the jungle is giving you. The jungle will always give you something. In Panna Tiger Reserve, only up till now, I had seen photographs of, there's this bird called the white-eye buzzard. It's generally seen on trees, high up on trees and all that, like a typical raptor. And I had photographed it on trees. I mean, I had good pictures. But for the first time in Panna Tiger Reserve, I saw it sitting on the ground eating, eating its kill, right? So I managed to get some very good pictures of that. Now again, I could have been sulking in one corner of my jeep and saying that, "Arey, tiger nahi mila," and my luck is so bad. Okay, you can imagine 7 safaris in Panna, 3 full day boating outings in Sundarbans, and no tiger has been sighted, right? And if I go around telling anyone this, they'll say, this is what happens. That's why you should not do it. But when they see my pictures, they are like, "You are very lucky." It's not I'm lucky. I take what the jungle is giving me. It's like, the forest god is giving you an offering. You have to be humble. Nature humbles you in many ways. This is one of its many. That don't come here seeking something. What we give, take it. And I think that is a mantra that needs to be applied in general to living, to coexisting with nature. That don't go and grab, right? Take what is being given to you. If you follow that life lesson, it is a holistic life lesson which you can apply to all other aspects of your life also.
Wonderful. Yeah, I kind of concur with you that I remember when I had gone to Sariska and after numerous things, I also didn't see it, but there was a board that I came across. It said something
Yeah.
like that: "You might not have seen the tiger, but he saw you." So
Yes.
so
Correct.
that that
So
that.
it's a very popular saying that, you will see the tiger one in 100 times, but the tiger is seen you the remaining 99 of the 100 times, because the foliage, the way they are camouflaged. You are going up and down in your jeep or your vehicle, whatever it is. You don't know where the tiger is sitting. The tiger can see you. So it is very true.
Yeah. So now let's the main agenda for the day is, how did you make the transition? So now we have heard your all the escapades in all the jungles and photographing and all, from a photographer to a writer, and how has that transition? Which these are completely, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and then you're actually writing 1,000 words. So if we talk about the book first, we'll talk about the current book, The Tiger, Bear, and the Battle for Mahovann. How did that come to life through all your
So
adventures?
basically, what happened was, this is a true story that I am telling you, that uh, we were actually in Kaziranga in 2018, in Diwali, during Diwali 2018 November. Diwali was in November, the month of November, and me, my wife, and daughter had gone there. So what happened was, on one of those safaris, my daughter, who at that time was 8 years old, we were, I think, waiting for some, just kind of had stopped the vehicle to look at the surroundings and all that. And she, made this very kind of very innocuous, innocent remark that, Daddy, you write all these boring books on film, on Hindi films, which I'm not interested in. Why don't you do something for me also? So genuinely, she actually said this. So I said, "Acha, let me see what I can do." And as my, these trips to the forest or to the wild areas continued to happen, what I realized was that I can do something. And this grounding that I have in Hindi cinema, I have watched a lot. I grew up watching 70s Hindi cinema, 70s, 80s, Lost and Found, for a trope which is so common in those films. So actually, with her, that remark, and this, I also had this thing that, there is so much biodiversity in this country, that we must make children aware of what are the animal species beyond the usual ones. Like I said, tiger, rhino, bear, to sabne suna hai, but uske beyond kya hai? So I tried to come up with a story where, it involved all these elements. It had to be interesting for the sake of my own child. I wanted to educate the children, which is why it's an illustrated book with a glossary at the end, about, with one or two lines about each of the main characters in the book. Some general knowledge information has been given, and then the story itself came from several influences. Lost and Found theme from Hindi cinema.
Yes.
uh, some element of the Mahabharata are there in the book. uh, Various influences, some of it was my own touch. It is in a way a traditional kind of story. It's without giving much away, it is some kind of story of good versus evil, but it's not as simple as that, right? I have also hoped to give some kind of contemporary touch to the story, right? What are the issues that the world is facing right now, or at least at the time that I was writing the book. So, based on all those factors, the environment, my own influences, that kind of came into how this book took shape.
Wonderful. I just one thing before I'll just say, once your daughter ages, she'll really appreciate your book. Especially, I'm a big fan of your book on Zahir Saab, which was a fascinating biography that you had worked. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you.
so, moving from, you have made a deliberate, I should say, as you said, you have made a deliberate attempt to educate and also entertain in that sense. What has been the nuances, that if you were to pick a couple of those nuances of, education, which you kind of imbued in the book itself, like, for instance, I for myself, I love the biodiversity, that this is the first time,
Yes.
the wild ass. I've not seen a wild ass
Yes,
in
yes.
any books.
So exactly, having these different characters, which, see, the example now which is coming to my mind is that, we always complain, or we when we were growing up, the constant complaint was that in this country it's only cricket, no other sport gets any kind of visibility, right? Now there is so much more visibility and so many more options for young children, right? They can take up hockey, they can take up tennis. So many youngsters are getting their livelihoods now from this pro kabaddi, right? There is money flowing into badminton, with India's talent pool in badminton. There is so many. So now, when we were children, it was all cricket, cricket, cricket. Nobody spoke about any other sport but cricket. So everyone was like kind of leading this blinkered life. Ki if my child has to take up sport, in any case, we were disincentivized from picking up sport. But if he has to take up sport, it has to be cricket, right? So, now that is self-limiting. Not every child is born to be a cricketer, right? They might be talented with the hockey stick in their hand, or they might be talented with boxing gloves on their hands, right? So you have to give them the right opportunity, the right coaching, the right mentoring. So same thing happens in wildlife also. If you keep talking tiger, bear, elephant, eagle, peacock, they will only understand that. But if you expose them to other species, right, then they will start realizing. And see, not tiger is not found everywhere in the world. It is found in most places in India, right? Other than in the kind of frozen areas, or the snow capped areas in this country, although the tiger is capable of surviving even in those temperatures and those regions, as we see in Siberia, the Siberian tiger and all that, but not in India. But otherwise, the tiger is found pretty much all across the country, leaving maybe 3-4 states here or there. It's a remarkably adaptable animal. Uh, but there are other species which are unique to a certain geographical area, like you spoke about the wild ass, which is found in the little Rann of Kutch. There is the Tibetan wild ass, which is found in Ladakh, and those that area, which is there. There are two different species, subspecies of the wild ass. So if you broaden your understanding, then you might get. Not everyone is going to get. It's the same thing. Not everyone is born to be a cricketer. Not everyone is only bothered about the tiger. There are other animal species that can appeal to you. There is a lady in West Bengal, I forget her name, sorry, in Assam, who has dedicated her life to the conservation of this bird species called the greater adjutant stork, right? I think her name is Punima Dev Burman. She is a fantastic earth warrior, and has done great work in conserving the greater adjutant stock, right? Similarly, there are other people who are dedicating their lives towards the research of one particular animal species. Now obviously, it's not like one fine day they woke up and they discovered, right? Somebody somewhere must have told them about this particular animal species. They must have seen, they must have read, and somewhere a light must have kind of gone off in their head, that why are we not talking more about this particular animal species, right? So yes, the draw to the book was the tiger, the bear, which is there in the title. So that tells you that it's a story about the jungle, and there are these important characters which in any case are quite popular. But beyond that, if you go and you read the book, there are other several animal characters, like there's the Hollock gibbon is playing a character in the story. The wild asses you spoke about are playing characters. There is a bird like the peregrine falcon which is there in the story. There is a fox in the story, and all these animals are found in India, right? So can we start having conversations about other animal species? The thing is, we are caught up with tiger conservation, which is very important. It's really important to save the flagship animal of this country, right, and to protect its wild areas. But there are so many other wild species which need protection. There is a species of monkey called the lion-tailed macaque, which is found in the Western Ghats down south, and they are in such a state of danger that we are not talking about it enough. So to answer your question, one was through the characters, and secondly, I wanted to pinpoint. I didn't want to just say this character is a monkey, right? Within the monkey species or the ape species, there are species like the Hollock gibbon. There are species like the lion-tailed macaque. All these characters are there in my book. Now you will say, why the need to be so, after all, you're reading to a child, or the story is for a child. Why do you need to be so, particular and so specific? Well, because we are all Indians, but within us being Indians, there is somebody who's Maharashtrian, there's somebody who's Bengali, there's somebody who's from Tamil Nadu. We all have our respective subcultures beyond this overarching, kind of fact that we are Indian, right? But within that, we belong to a certain region. We eat a certain kind of food. We speak a certain kind of language, right? So same thing within the animal species also. A Hollock gibbon and a lion-tailed macaque may be very broadly, they belong to the monkey family, right? But they are different. They are so very different, in as much as a person from Bihar and a person from Maharashtra are different. They are Indians, but their cultures are so diverse that you cannot say that, acha, they are both interchangeable. The person from Maharashtra has his own unique identity, the person from Bihar has his own unique culture and identity, and both ought to be respected. The same thing is true of the animal species. And children, are like, their minds are like sponges. So if you tell them, they will absorb, right? If you treat them like, acha, ye bacche ke liye ye itna hi kafi hai, so that you are to blame as an adult, that you are not giving them the right direction. it is our job. If we want to, we have to save the environment, but we also have to mentor younger minds. We have to make them aware. So that's what I was trying to do through the book.
Wonderful. And that's what the book also comes out. It's not your typical children's book, which are very easy on that. There's a plot, there's detailing, there's a lot of there seems to be a lot of research there, and background thought that has gone along, behind it. So in that sense, this book is pretty different. I had just one. There's one species which is very endemic to India and missing through the book is the two-legged one. Was there a deliberate attempt on your part to avoid the humans that are there,
Yeah, I mean, I have always found that books which talk about animals, generally there will be a human being telling the story, or so I didn't. And again, I was conscious of, I didn't want to tell another Jungle Book where there is a Mowgli like character or there's a Tarzan like character. These are, to my mind, certain uh, these are certain, I would say, I won't say absurd. Well, I won't say that my book is trying to be realistic, because realistic has various definitions. There is so much in my book which is not realistic, if you go by that the simplistic definition of that term. No, I didn't want to kind of create another Tarzan or a Mowgli like character where one human being is coexisting with these animals. No, I wanted to tell this story only through the animals that are there in the story. That was a conscious decision I made.
Yeah. And how do you, so Akshay, from my perspective, because you have been such, involved in the wildlife thing, and in India, if you see the kind of, despite the biodiversity that we have, there's so much of conflict and so much of the, how were you able to navigate those, not the book not being, because after all, for a, it's often said that for a children's book, you have to, the book has to be in hopeful in that sense, the battles and all. So how did you, manage those things?
When you mean that that it should have been a little optimistic,
No,
is
no.
that?
I'm saying the real world is so dark that the
Yes.
scenarios that we have, right? How as a writer are you able to, kind of look at the positive side when you're writing a book like that? Because you are also very much involved in the wildlife scenarios, right? You see it from
No,
first.
I actually, my book is, I was a little worried that is the book too dark, because if you have gone through the book has, it has, well, there are incidents of violence. I won't call it a violent book, but there are episodes of violence in the book. And one of the things which I learned, or which again was some kind of influence, if you look at J.K. Rowling's books, the Harry Potter series, there are episodes of violence. I mean, the resolution of that plot is fairly violent, I would say. Where Harry Potter squares off against the Dark Lord Voldemort and all that. So I think what she was trying to tell us, and I read it in my adult years. I mean, a long way back, but I was already an adult by then. Was that again, we take children for this, कि अरे नहीं वो बच्चा है उसको, don't try and do something which is, which has these kind of dark episodes and all that. No, I think children are smart enough. They are, I mean, of course you can't cross a certain line. You cannot go overboard with your description of violence, or it cannot be too graphic and all that. You have to be a little careful. And of course, the definition of what that line is will again vary from person to person. But I was very clear that children are capable of handling. This it's also an important lesson to give your child that there, there are some parents, and I'm not here to judge anybody. There are some parents who like to keep their children in some kind of fairy tale land. This is the world. And there are some parents who are like कि नहीं, dunya is not a garden of roses. It is hard, it is challenging and all. I think I fall in that kind of category. So I wanted to tell a story which kind of tells children that hota hai. There are these things that happen which are where there are dark episodes and there are episodes of violence. I mean, I hope I wasn't overly graphic, but and at the same time the idea was to kind of introduce them to the various characters that are found in the Indian jungles. Another conscious effort that I made was I wanted to only tell a story where the characters are found in Indian jungles. So there are no giraffes and zebras, and of course the lion is found in India, but I did not have any giraffes and zebras or any other kind of species which is not found in India, right? So that was a conscious attempt, because even for example Jungle Book, again, I mean, I read it as a child, and it's such a great work of fiction by the author, that I felt somewhere that some of the things shown were a little unbelievable, right? Okay, now that Bagheera, he is a panther, and it is found in India, but a lot of people grow up thinking that the panther is a totally different species from the leopard. It's not. It is a melanistic version of the leopard, like how human beings have, those who have those pigmentation issues, they have that skin texture. Similarly, in the leopard, when that melanistic version happens, morph, then it becomes black in color. So or let's say the python in the story in Jungle Book, you know what kind of python was it, where was it found, and all. I Those were some of the issues that I had with Jungle Book. I mean, this I'm only saying in hindsight, you know so I wanted to tell something which is strictly Indian in its in its scope, in the sense that these animals are found in India. But I made this decision that it's not going to be some kind of fairy tale story. I did not set out to tell Rapunzel or what other fairy tales are there. I didn't want to tell a fairy tale, but I wanted to tell something which is dark. It has some episodes of, there was conflict which was created in terms of the plot line and all that, and then hopefully there was a resolution which I felt was my own fresh take on how the climax is resolved.
Yeah, wonderful and interesting. You spoke about Bagheera. I remember that the leopard in Kabini Park has been labeled as Bagheera by many simply
Correct.
because
Yes.
that,
Yes.
that thing.
Yes.
There's a school of thought, Akshay, and that says the whole idea of anthropomorphism, where
Yeah.
we ascribe. There's a thing. It's not. We shouldn't be doing that, and those kind of arguments that animals are. We shouldn't be ascribing human emotions to that. How do you react to those kind of
I I
thoughts?
I mean, I don't take them. I haven't heard too much of this, to kind of. But just prima facie, I'm reacting and saying that I wouldn't take. Anthropomorphism is a very old. In fact, one of the reasons that I think Indians have, till very recently, or that we have managed to coexist with animals in non-designated protected areas, is because we ascribe human forms to these animals. A lot of our gods, are basically there's somebody's vehicle is a lion, somebody's vehicle is a tiger, somebody, Ma Shirawali, and Lord Ganpati. So it is there in our culture itself, and I think that's why there is, fundamentally, it is easy to teach an Indian that he can coexist with the wild, because we have given human forms to rivers, to the way we have named them, to how we treat inherently there is a natural respect for them. It's because of the kings from the past, and the colonialism that happened, and all that hunting and all became something so big and so extravagant, that for about 100 200 years we just kind of, on maybe even more, we just kind of went about hunting. But actually, fundamentally, Indians know how to coexist, right? So I won't say that, nay, it's not good. I think there is some good that comes out of it, because when you ascribe human characteristics and human forms to these things, which are otherwise cannot be put into any kind of shape and form, it kind of humanizes it, and therefore helps you to relate better to the thing which might otherwise appear to be abstract to people whom you are trying to educate.
Wonderful, yeah. That reminds me of the shrine that has come for Khandoba in, I think so, in R.A. Mill Colony only recently. They have,
Right, right,
yes,
right.
that a leopard based deity. Yeah. So now you gave us a sense of the timeline that it was in 2018 November that you this book, that the spark for this book was germinated by your
Hmm,
the
hmm.
sibling was by your daughter. What was the process like after that? How much time did it take you? And
So actually, so that's where this conversation happened, and then the actually what happened was in 2000. So this happened in 2018 November, and 2019 I was actually supposed to travel to this Kanha Bandhavgarh, which eventually happened in October 2020, but it was supposed to happen in 2019 June. My NBA season was getting over, and 3 days later, I was supposed to make a trip to Kanha and Bandhavgarh. But tragically, what happened is that the day the NBA season got over and I was supposed to leave 3 days later, I fell ill with typhoid. The day the NBA season got over, a week later, I was hospitalized, and I was running high temperature for a week and all that, and then finally I had to cancel my trip last minute. Literally last minute, I had to call up my tour operator and said that I can't do it. Uh, I'm running very high fever and I'm doing all kinds of tests, malaria, dengue, and all that, and nothing is proving conclusive. Then finally, a week later, they tested me for typhoid, and I was immediately hospitalized. So when I was lying in hospital, this idea took shape in my head, that the germ of the idea was coming from, let's say, you could say, a Manmohan Desai film, right? That
LKD, yes.
there is a tiger, whether it's a tigress or a tiger, a male tiger, who is separated from her three cubs, just like Amar Akbar Anthony.
Yes,
So
yes.
what are the circumstances that lead to the three cubs being separated from the tiger parent, and how they come back together? Now, actually, that was supposed to be the prologue of the book, but I didn't even think that, if you read my book, and I might be giving away some spoilers over here, that I did not think that the hero of my book would be, a female tiger. But when it just happened organically, that the hero actually became this female tiger, the tigress in the story, right? But then I realized, if I begin the story with the tigress getting separated from her cubs, then I'm giving away the ending, right?
Yes.
So that idea remained with me, that she will be the hero of the story, so to say. And we will not begin with a prologue, but we will begin from wherever the story begins. So instead of there being a prologue and then a chapter one and then an epilogue, we just started directly from chapter one, because I didn't want to reveal. So a lot of people have told me that when they first started reading the book, they thought that this particular tiger will be the hero of the story, or that when they read 3 4 chapters in, they thought this tiger character will be the hero of the story. And it's only, I think, around chapter 6 or 7, which is the halfway mark, that they realize that it's not the first two tigers, but it is this female tiger who is the hero of the story. So in that way also, I was breaking rules, because so far, if you see some of the most popular depictions of the tiger, whether it is the Jungle Book, or whether you see our own adaptation that we did of the Jungle Book, when we were growing up, that Gulzar Saab's song, and Nana Patekar's voiceover for Sher Khan, the tiger has actually been demonized, right? And all these news reports we get to see of the tiger, attacking human beings and all, it has actually been demonized. So I was very clear that my story will have a hero, and I was again flipping genre rules, so to say, where the bear will not be sweet and cuddly, but he will be this kind of villainous character, so to say. So there were some rules, genre rules, that you could say that I broke. I turned them on their head, and then of course, having the female tiger emerging as the champion was, again, this just happened organically. So while the germ of the idea came to me in 2019, I started writing it, I would say, around, when did I start writing it? I think I started writing it in shortly thereafter, maybe August September of 2019. I had started work on it, and I didn't struggle with the plot. I thought I would struggle, because this was the first time I was doing fiction writing. My previous two books, as you know and you have said, are based in the world of Hindi cinema, so those were non-fiction. But I didn't struggle, and maybe that is a bad thing. I'm not trying to boast over here that I didn't struggle. Maybe I should have struggled a little more with the plot and maybe given it some more layers and all that. But you only learn from what you have done previously. So even the books that I did on cinema, each one of them was a learning experience, and I hope to do better next time. So this book also taught me some things, and which I hope to do better next time. But when that next time will happen, I don't know.
No, I should say one thing. I personally think, it's just serendipity that, all these years of you visiting all these things, right? All the
Yeah.
parks, and they were getting ingrained in you somewhere. And,
Yes.
you just, and, look at the sheer fact that Bollywood you took a very nice thing, Bollywood, and you, kind of, and that's interesting because a lot of times, and in our past conversations with a lot of authors also, they have said that the motive has always been to kind of entertain and educate. It's not
Correct.
about
Correct.
uh,
Correct.
the while you write about nature, but if the book is not entertaining, no one is going to read it anyways.
Correct. In fact, one of the things I learned from this book, or well, I won't say I learned. I pretty much knew that this is what I want to do. I don't know if somebody else who's a better writer than me will agree with me, but I think it always has to be plus one. So whatever be your subject that you're writing, and I'm only talking about fiction. This may not be true of non-fiction, but in fiction writing, whatever story you're trying to tell, there has to be plus one to it, and by that means the same thing. So the story was to entertain, the plus one was to educate. If you're only going to tell entertain, then I think you're losing out on giving your story and some kind of edge. Right now there might be people who will tell just a story to entertain, but within that they will give several layers to it, which also becomes some kind of plus one to it. Right. So beyond the fundamental thing that I'm here to tell a story, and when you set out to tell a story, obviously the idea is to provide some kind of well, I won't say entertainment, but I would say there is some kind of breaking from monotony that you're trying to give your reader. Right. Your reader is trying to escape into the world that you are giving your reader. Right. So that has to be there, but beyond that there has to be something else that you give your reader, so that he says, yeah, I came here to escape from my world, but beyond that I'm learning something else also, or it is doing something else for me also. So recently I read a book. This is a friend of mine. She wrote this wonderful book. It's a non-fiction book, and it's really well written. It's her debut work of fiction. It's called The Secret of Moore. And now when I picked up the book, when I read it's a book set in Bombay, so early 20th century Bombay. So since you come from Bombay, I would recommend the book to you also. You must pick it up. So a I knew what I'm getting into, right? It is a kind of an escape into Bombay of 100 years ago, because the story is actually covers 50 years of the early 20th century till the mid 20th century. It begins in 1899, it finishes in, I think, 1952. So incredible scope. So now at one level she was telling me a story of Bombay different from the Bombay of today, a total work of fiction. So I knew what I was getting into. That is the foundation, that or let me say the basic thing. But beyond that, the plus one was telling a story which traverses 50 years. It's not a story which is only 2 years or 3 years, right? And I thought that just gave it another dimension only. She spoke about the silent movie era, because the protagonist, he kind of he invests, or rather he becomes a part of the silent movie era. I mean, that's her fictionalized story. But it took me into all those, good work of fiction comes from a lot of historical understanding. So it always has to be, according to me, fiction will always be basic plus one.
Okay. Okay, something to give an example, something like the in Mumbai we have that Sukha Puri after that that
Yeah,
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 that Sukha
yeah, yeah,
Puri is also
exactly. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah. So coming to your book, you said one of the breaking the monotony, one of the most basic ways and most, I think so, one of the important ways of breaking that is through illustrations. And your
Yes.
book also has some of these very interesting illustrations. While there are a lot of these things in the reviews that saw chance across. They were like, oh, if only they were in color. So
Yeah,
if you can talk about those illustrations and how they came about it, it would be interesting. I have a couple of them. Let me just, if you want, I can pull them up.
yeah, yeah. Please, please, you can show them.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was, yeah,
That's
this.
actually the that image. Sorry, when we are talking now, I realize now that's actually the fundamental story idea. That there is this tiger parent with her three cubs, and they are getting separated. And this is actually they are we are trying to show them going their different ways. One is branching out to the left, one is branching out to the right, and the tiger parent with that little cub is branching out in another direction. But to come back to your question of why black and white and not color, see, one of the problems is in with publishing color books is that they end up becoming prohibitively expensive, right? So we had to, in fact, initially when I started out, I had also tried to collaborate with another illustrator where without reaching out to any publisher, I hadn't even spoken because see, people like to bracket you. They see you as, Acha, ye to he writes on non-fiction on Hindi cinema. So what's the need for him to write children's books and all? So if I had in my head, I had this, if I go to them with an idea of a children's book, nobody will take me seriously. So let me write my book, let me take it to them, and then let's see who will back it. At least then I have something to show that I have written it. Okay, so this question will not be there. It's not part of your capability set. So I had looked to collaborate. In my head, I was very clear this book has to be done in color because that will actually help children see these animals for what they are, right? Unfortunately, for whatever reason, that collaboration with that particular illustrator didn't work out well, right? She was very good at her work, but it didn't work out well. I mean, there were issues that came up in terms of scheduling and her time to the project, etc., and it didn't work out. And at that point, I went to I spoke to a couple of publishers, and this particular publisher, which was Westland Red Panda, the editor in chief over there, Kartika, whom I have known for some years, she said, "Why don't you have a conversation with my children's book editor, a lady by the name of Vidhi Bhargav?" So I called up Vidhi, and simultaneously I had also reached out to three or four other publishers, or I think I reached out to some other publishers later. But I spoke to Vidhi, and Vidhi sounded very, from day one, she was very interested in the idea. The only thing she told me, she said, I will not be able to do colors because it will make your book prohibitively expensive. We cannot do an entire book in color, especially your book of your size, which is about 200 odd pages of text. And then, so we'll do black and white. So that, in a sense, it broke my heart. I still harbor. In fact, just today morning, I was having a conversation with Vidhi ki Vidhi, agle baar to we have to do color, and she was still trying to explain to me ki it's not going to happen. Because you will either need a big sponsor or somebody to kind of do it as a kind of a what do you call their those non-profit initiatives or something like that. Say what's it called, corporate social CSR, as part of their CSR initiatives.
Or a grant
Otherwise,
from somewhere.
yeah, otherwise we will not be able to do it. So I said, "Acha, theek hai." So I mean, this is what I told her even then, and what I told her even today. So she talked me into doing it. She said, "If you are agreeable to having the illustrations in black and white, we will do it, and I will even suggest an illustrator to you." So she suggested an illustrator to me, this young girl called Devashri Damodre, who I think has done a fantastic job. And it's one thing I realized while working with her, and a couple of there was even one illustrator who came very briefly between the first one and Devashri. And she very clearly, the moment we said black and white, she said, "Black and white I will not do. I am interested if you're doing color." So anyways, it didn't work out with her also. But one thing I realized is, and I think this is again true of everything in life, that your talent is only so much, right? Beyond that, it is your discipline and your commitment to the project. And Devashri was just too good. So actually, I had given them the manuscript, I think in 2020 December or so. We had finalized the deal with Westland. But the illustrator, Vidhi, called me up only in, I think, in May end of 2021, saying that now we need to find an illustrator. I have slotted this book for a end of the year release. So you need to, start on the illustrations. So last year, I remember we started work on the illustration sometime in June, I think 1st of June or 10th of June, around that time. And literally by June, July, August, September, October, 4.5 months, we finished the illustrations, and it was really breakneck. And the first 2 months, June and July, Devashri was able to give her complete time to me, so we did half the illustrations then. And then from, I think, mid to end July onwards, she started doing a 2-year course on, I think it is interior designing or something, some kind of creative work, creative educational program that she has enrolled for, in it's in Ahmedabad. And she juggled her daily project assignments, or whatever post grad commitments that she had going, and she's now living as a boarder over there, with working. So she would, we would have a call on Zoom at about 10 p.m., 11 p.m. in the night. I would give her the brief, I would tell her the scene, and she would start working. So the remaining, the second half of the illustrations in the book have all been done with Devashri working in the night, sending me the first rough cut in the morning, and then she would go and attend her classes, and then again we would kind of circle back maybe on the next day or maybe the day after, and that's how she did it. So she was very, very committed. I mean, the kind of effort that she put in to produce those illustrations are fantastic. And again, just the reason I sent you those two or three illustrations was, see, if you look at those illustrations, those two illustrations that I sent you, right? This one and the other one, they are not from, like, right now how you and me are talking. You can see my face and I can see your face, so that's a front on view, right? But now this particular illustration, it's from behind, right? Right. So even if you're doing black and white, you need not be giving vanilla views, right? Everything need not be head on. I could have shown head on also, that there are these three tigers and the tiger cub and all that, four tigers, and head on view. But this is giving a different flavor only, where you're giving the illustration from somebody behind them, so whose point of view it is. This could be an animal who is sitting behind these three tigers and the tiger cub, right? And what is the view in front of them? They are going their different ways. Similarly, the other illustration was actually, it's an illustration from one of the moments late in the story, where this tiger is having a nightmare that, if we fight this battle, and this is one of my influences from the Mahabharata. And again, I think that it was a good touch on my part to have this kind of moment in the story, where this tiger has this kind of doubt that if we fight this battle, what will happen to my near and dear ones, right? Which is the same kind of doubt that Arjun has just before the battle of Kurukshetra begins, right? They will all die, right? So this illustration, if you see, it's actually inside a thought bubble kind of thing. If you look at the edges of the illustration, they are like a round circular kind of bubble. So it's like, it's, so again, when you're doing an illustration, it need not be that same, ki acha mujhe wo rectangular space itna mila hai, so I have to use each and every centimeter, and that how do, and it's again, the view is given from the top, from on top, because we want to show all the dead bodies lying around, right? So how do we do it, right? So we've already given some shots from behind, we have given some shots from in front, we have given some shots from, let's say, a diagonal angle, looking down. So this one we give right from the top, and then to give the idea that it's because the tiger is having a nightmare, we put it in a bubble, like how when people are dreaming in their sleep and all that. So the tiger has this nightmarish scenario playing out in his head, and we thought we'll present it in this kind of way. So even if you're doing black and white, right, there are different ways to present. You need not go back thinking that, अरे now my book is, it's that same thing, अरे tiger नहीं दिखा तो अब तो कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते. No, you have to make use of what life gives you.
No, no. In some sense, I'll tell you very honestly. When I was going through the book, I felt I might be because as an adult, I felt that the black and white made you think a bit more. It drew you more into the story in that sense.
That's a fresh perspective somebody is giving me. um I still feel I would have liked to do the book in color. I mean, Devashri has done a fantastic job. She knows I'm hugely indebted, and wherever I go, I always talk about her contribution to the book. It is significant. This book would have been very incomplete without her work. And again, I told her this also. She's much younger than me. I told her that your talent was great, but the way she committed herself to the project and dedicated, and in fact, sometimes, a couple of times I must have got a little, kind of irritated with her. And the next day, my wife would overhear me talking to her, and she would say that I think you were being rude to, she's after all much younger and she's a student and you cannot talk like this to her. And I would, in my next call, which I told you would happen the next day, 24 hours later, I would begin the call by beginning to apologize for my, kind of brusque behavior, so to say. And Devashri would be like, "Arey, आपने मुझे डांटा नहीं, आप तो मुझे motivate कर रहे थे." So, absolutely the right. I'm not saying that somebody should behave like this and, you should make light of it. And I don't think I behaved badly, but maybe one or two illustrations I expressed my displeasure, or I said, "Nahi, Devashri, you can do better." But maybe it should have come out with a little more softness, or, it shouldn't have been that rough. But her attitude and temperament were just too good, too good.
We could say it was an honest partnership in that sense.
Very, I mean, I was so happy working with her. I hope she feels the same way also. But really, she was. It was a real delight working with her.
So we are running short of time, but I have a couple of quick ones to,
Sure.
one two important aspects which we need to think.
Yes.
One of the things that most of our, and these the series is watched by what a lot of young, would be wannabe writers,
Yes.
and one of the questions they often have, can we make a living out of writing books on nature, and how do you do it? Your take on
Well,
it.
see, my straightforward, honest answer is that no. But again, you have to define what does it mean to that. Can I make a living? If you are a person who has pass needs, and that you can. If you're not living in Bombay, I think Bombay in itself puts so much of financial pressure on you with the rents and real estate and just everything being so expensive in the city that it's difficult to. I have a friend who moved to Delhi. He was in Bombay for about more than I think 5-6 years, and he moved to Delhi and he said, "See, you see, in Bombay, to just put that basic amount of rent on the table, you have to, like, sell your soul, and because of the prices in this city, right?" But he's saying in Delhi, even if I don't get the same amount of work, I can still afford to live in, so to say, South Delhi, which is like, the posh area of Delhi, because rents are half of what they are in Bombay. So again, the easy answer to say is it's quite difficult. It's virtually impossible. I have been very fortunate that I have a partner who has a very good job, and she is the breadwinner in our family, and that allows me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. uh, and also I have supplemented my writing work with the work that I do with the NBA, which has been financially quite rewarding. And also, I mean, I am a basketball junkie, so it is very satisfying at that level also. So you can see this poster of Michael Jordan is there. So my room, on one side you will have these wild images which are there, and on one side you have this basketball image. Even behind me there is a poster of a very famous Urdu poet, and so that's where the influence for Sahir Saab came. So it again depends from individual to individual. What are their circumstances? How much support they get from their family members? I have been lucky in that sense. I have been lucky in the sense that I found these gigs. Well, these gigs were not given to me on a platter. I had to work for them. It did not happen because I knew somebody. I had to prove myself. So in that sense, it was hard. Uh, uh, if I was just by myself, I would say yes, I can. I can make a living from doing these two or three things. But I'm not an individual. I'm living as part of a family unit. My wife is there. My daughter is there. Uh, so again, everyone's circumstances are different. But I would advise people that do what you believe in, and if really you believe in something and you want to do that only, then you have to make sacrifice and compromise somewhere in your life, right? So you have to find your own equilibrium.
Okay. Wonderful. And one thing I wanted to touch upon is you have emphasized that a couple of times is the thing about discipline and all these things.
Yeah,
As
yeah, yeah.
as a writer, and we have at times some people have said writing is a process. It's people tend to talk writing as a creative thing, and it's a light that shines on top of your hand. Some people say no, you
Mhm.
have to just put down. So where do you stand on that?
See, firstly, Shashwat, I'll be very honest, and I'm not trying to sound too modest, or please don't misunderstand me. I genuinely have a problem in describing myself or calling myself a writer, because I 90% of the time I'm not writing, right? And this is not a boast, or it's not a show off कि अच्छा अब ये writer है भी नहीं और इन्होंने 3 किताब लिख दी. नहीं, वो मेरे साथ वैसा नहीं है कि I have to wake up in the morning and I have to put in the, and those people who do it, I admire them. I wish I was like them. I genuinely wish, because I think it is like any other craft. You have to work on your craft to get better. My problem is that I am a scatterbrain, in the sense that I have to, I get tired of things. If I like, now people reach out to me for having a conversation on Sahir, my book on Sahir Ludhianvi. I am very tired of that. I will not, I will, be very selective and choosy, because that is something now that came out 9 years ago. Right. I don't want to be stuck in my past, or, living on the accolades that book got. I am hugely indebted to whatever admiration that it has got me, whatever little recognition it has got me. But I don't want to continuously be living off it. Right. I want to move forward. For example, this friend of mine whose book I just mentioned, The Secret of More. She, when I called her to compliment her, I called her up after I finished the book. I called her up. She doesn't live in India, and she was. I told her. I said, midway through reading the book, I had just sent her a message saying that I'm really enjoying your book, and she replied, or maybe I think we spoke even at that point, and she said that it's so good to get compliments from another writer. And I told her, I said that, look, do not put me in the same boat as you. You are a writer. This is what a writer would do. It is such good literature that you have put together. Your prose is it is so good. I cannot produce this kind of prose. Of course, I'm not a fiction writer of that kind. My fiction is, it was my first work of fiction for children, and my previous two books are of non-fiction. But in the only thing which is common to my NBA work, to my wildlife photography, and to my work in the world of whatever little writing I do in the books that I have done, is that I am very disciplined. I am very hardworking. So when I'm doing a particular thing, I will do it with my complete involvement. Right. So for example, you'll say, how does that happen in the case of wildlife? It is exactly like this. Like, I have set out on this journey where I want to cover every wildlife area, and I'm doing it. I'm halfway there. When I started out, the list of these wild areas was about 40, 35, 40. I kept adding. Like I tell you, every time I go, I learn of another place. But over a period of time, the number of these wild areas has come down now, because I myself have done about 25 odd spaces. Right. So I'm sitting at about now another 30 are left. And I know that in the next 3-4 months, I will be covering another 4-5 areas. Right. So that list will come down. So it is only through that discipline. It is only through that hard work. Ki, हाँ, मुझे करना है. And some of these trips are hard. And it has happened with me that my camera has malfunctioned. It has misfired. It has not worked. And as difficult a trip as going to those hilly mountainous areas of Uttarakhand, after having made an all day and a half long journey, or 2 day long journey, dealing with winding roads, car journey, then catch a flight from from Bombay to Delhi, do the winding roads of Uttarakhand. My camera did not work. It just did not work, and I was like, I was cursing myself and my luck. But it happens, and I am determined to correct that, and I hope to correct it in February this year, the next year. So you have to keep at it, and that is true of anything we do, no? Whether I am in the corporate world, whether I'm a civil servant, whether I'm a government functionary, I'm a politician. You have to keep at it. If you give up, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Wonderful. One of the things that I would say through the conversation that we had today, one of the things that you have mentioned a couple of times, and this has been very interesting, is you constantly said about, oh, I have to improve. This is something. you yourself are, there's a benchmark that you already have for yourself, that okay, this is
Yes, yes,
where I'm doing.
yes,
I've not reached there. I have to keep
yes,
on doing those things.
yes. Yes, I would say this is true. Again, I don't mean to sound pompous or preachy or patronizing and tell people I will show you the way. No, this is what I know for myself, that can I do better? Can I do better? When I'm taking a photograph, so, like I told you, I have been to Rwanda and I've seen the silverback gorilla and I have photographed them. But those images are horrible. They're nowhere near me comparing myself to some of. Even now, the images that I take, I don't compare them to some of India's best wildlife photographers. Nowhere. But I know that if earlier I was here and they were there, then at least now I've come somewhere, like somewhere maybe here I've come. This Now I can only bridge this journey if I attempt, if I plan that, can I get better? Then there is hope. It's like that child who's struggling at math but wants to get better, right? If he's happy with 50 on 100 or 60 on 100, then ठीक है, उसका life चलेगा. But if you want to get better, you will work harder, no? So that when I do my NBA commentary, I come out sometimes from the studio saying I could have done a better job, and it happens every weekend. Every time I go into the studio, I was like, no, I made a mistake over here. I made a blunder. I'm sounding repetitive. Can I do better? Right? The same thing happens when I set out my film books. I can tell you the shortcomings of each of them now, and there are portions, especially you talk about the Sahir book, there are portions of it which I'm so embarrassed that I wrote. I want to bury my face in the sand and not show my face to people. But there are people who tell me that lots of people have told me that it's a very good piece of work and all, and I feel happy by it. But I have to also be self-critical. Otherwise, how will I get better?
So I think so. You don't need a critic at all. You're your best one only.
No, actually, just sorry, I'll give you one more quick line. You see, one of my sporting idols was Michael Jordan, right? He, to me, remains the singular greatest athlete of all time. Like any sport, anywhere, for me, Jordan is the benchmark, right? And I have a book of his, which is a coffee table book. My mother had got it for me when I was in college, right? And it's a coffee table book, brilliant production, very well designed and all, and it's about 25 years old. And it has his career over the years, from where he came as a child and all, but largely told through images with minimal text on each page. But like brilliant production. Even today when you open it, it doesn't feel that it's 25 years old, the quality of the production. On the last page of that book, for that man, who, even if you don't count him as the single greatest athlete of all time, you will rate him as amongst the top athletes in the last 30-40 years, whatever be the duration, right? For that man, on the last page of the book, there is a quote that he has, which I'm not Jordan, but I try to follow in each aspect of my life. The quote is, I stood there, I was aware of my success. I stood there, I was aware of my success, but I never stopped trying to get better. Right? So even if you go on my Facebook page, you will see that this quote is there. It's one of two quotes that I'm deeply inspired by. Right? It's that same philosophy. I try to, again, I don't count myself as being any kind of celebrity or being too talented, or no, it's just commitment, hard work, dedication, and it comes from the great man over there who continues to inspire me. So it is what it is.
Wonderful, wonderful. I should say that's a brilliant note to end. We could do better. That's a constant evolution that you're looking. Finally, any more books that you're thinking about? Any plots that you have, thought about? And will
No,
the
I know.
considering that it's all chance with you? Would we need another trip with your daughter to some park and to tell you
No,
about?
no, no. No, I certainly plan to do another like this kind of book, which is about us. It has a story and all. I have a rough idea. It's not as clear as the idea that I had for this book. Uh, What I know for sure is that the setting for that book is, I know where I want to place it. That I know. Here I wasn't sure of the place that I want to set it in, but the seed of the idea was clear that it's a tiger family which is getting separated and all, and from there the story took shape. There the story idea is very, I won't even call it a story idea. There are some rough elements that I know that I want to inculcate into the story, but I know the setting. So it's like, I mean, in lighter jest, sometimes you say na कि शादी के लिए दूल्हा तो नहीं मालूम है दुल्हन को, या दुल्हन नहीं मालूम है दूल्हा को, लेकिन पंडित जी तैयार हो, पंडित जी, who is the pandit,
Yeah,
right?
who's going to be?
So it's kind of that. I have the pandit, but I don't know who the bride or the bridegroom is going to be. So we leave it at that.
So let's hope so you find the so-called dulhan of this
Yes, yes,
story
yes.
soon. So thank you so much, Akshay. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. And there are
Thank you,
numerous
Shashwat.
things I think of this conversation people can draw in from. It's the process, the discipline, and the constant yearning to be bettering at whatever you're doing. That's something that I find very interesting that we would take from your conversation today. And I wish you all the luck. Beautiful book, I would suggest to all our viewers. Tigers, the tiger, the bear, and the battle for Mahovann. Grab it on Amazon or wherever you want to, Flipkart or whatever. I'm not advertising any particular store for that matter. So till we meet again next time, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Shashwat, for having me.